So a few years ago, I was standing at the bus stop after another brutal shift at my 9-to-5 job I had at the time. And it was a late shift, so it was pitch black, it was freezing cold, there was nobody around. And then out of nowhere, this car comes speeding past the bus stop and goes right through this giant puddle in the road and just absolutely drenches me with like dirty puddle water. And I remember just standing there thinking like, what the fuck has my life become? And that moment pops into my head a lot because I see it as a real FTE, or fuck this event, which is an idea from the book The Millionaire Fastlane, where you have a moment or an experience where you hit absolute rock bottom and you realize that something just has to change. And even though that moment might not sound that deep in retrospect, it actually ended up being a huge turning point for me. And it's the moment where I decided I needed to do something drastic, and I went into what I was calling at the time Cocoon Mode. So Cocoon Mode is essentially a very extreme period of complete immersion into your work, your self-improvement, your fitness journey, and you essentially completely isolate yourself from everything. Every distraction, whether it's social media, girls, video games, whatever your worst vices are. And you enter a period of solitude, deep, meaningful work, and extreme discipline. So in this 6-month Cocoon Mode period, I built my first actually successful online business after years and years of failing to make any money online. And I genuinely believe that the only reason that business was successful is because I committed myself to this extreme period of discipline and solitude. I also got in the best shape of my life physically because I wasn't drinking, I wasn't even socializing, and also mentally as well. For the first time, I felt so fulfilled and so purposeful. But I will say before we go on that I took it maybe a little bit too far. And you don't have to take it as extreme as I did, because for example, I remember I would call my mum, pretty much every Sunday evening, and I would say to her, "Mum, you do realize this is the only conversation I've had with another human being since the last time we spoke over the phone last weekend." So it was ridiculous. Like, it was so intense. I was so isolated from society. But I would still say it's one of the best things I've ever done, and easily one of the most important periods of my life. So I want to give you the 2 pillars, or the 2 most important concepts when it comes to undergoing a Cocoon Mode period that's going to change your life in 6 months. So the first one is definitely easier said than done, but that is to cut out all distractions. And this is going to be different for everyone. Maybe you're watching this and you spend too much time playing video games, or you watch too much porn, or you spend too much time watching racist reels on Instagram. I'm looking at you. But the first thing we need to do is actually identify these distractions. So we need to identify maybe 1 or 2 of these bad habits, of these destructive vices that we all have, that we're gonna remove for this period. And to do this, we're gonna take a physical pen and a physical piece of paper and actually write this down physically. So not a note on your phone, like get an actual pen and paper, and you're gonna write down 1 or 2 behaviors that you have, or bad habits that you have, that you know you need to get rid of. And there's a really interesting way that you can reframe this, and I think about this all the time. So I want you to imagine the perfect version of you in 6 months' time, or maybe in 1 year's time. Try and envision the idealized best version of you, or where you want to be in the future. And think about what kind of life you want to have, what kind of relationships do you want to have, what kind of person do you want to be. And now imagine that idealized perfect version of you in the future could see how you're living today. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I doing every day that version of me would be disappointed by? What would they be embarrassed by? What would they be ashamed of? And be brutally honest with yourself, and then write down your answer to that question. And I guarantee you will figure out exactly what you need to change and exactly what bad habits you need to get rid of. So now that we've identified these vices and identified these negative habits that we need to remove, now we obviously need to actually practically remove them. And there's a chasm between saying you're gonna become less distracted, or saying you're gonna spend less time on your phone, and actually reducing the time you spend on your phone. It's really difficult to actually follow through. But the best advice I've ever found when it comes to removing distractions is to create an environment where the bad habits are extremely difficult to access. For example, if you want to make an extreme change in your life, let's say you're addicted to video games. If I was in your situation and I was addicted to video games, I would probably call a friend, someone who I trust, and say, "Listen, mate, I'm trying to make a change. I want to take this seriously. Can I give you my Xbox for the next 6 months? And no matter what I say, no matter what I tell you, I do not want you to give me that Xbox back for the next 6 months." And if they're a genuinely good friend, they will do that for you. And then for that 6-month period, you now have an environment where playing Xbox or playing video games isn't even an option. Like you don't even have the possibility of getting distracted by video games. But you don't even have to take it that extreme. For example, if your biggest distraction is your phone or you spend too much time on social media, instead of having your phone right next to you whenever you're trying to work or whenever you're trying to study, instead go in a different room and just slide your phone under the bed or put it at the bottom of the wardrobe or something like that. And even though that's not that extreme, just keeping your phone in a different room, it makes such a difference. It's literally night and day, because if you're sat trying to work and you get distracted and you want to check your phone, going to the other room and sliding it back under the bed and it's just enough friction for you to not bother. Like you just can't be bothered to go and get your phone if it's all the way over there and it's under the bed. And I know you're thinking that sounds a bit silly and too simplistic, but next time you're trying to work, just go into your room, slide your phone under your bed, and you will notice a huge difference and you'll thank me later. Okay, so the second main concept of a successful cocoon mode that's gonna change your life in 6 months is deep work. And I actually wanna recommend this book to you. So this is Deep Work by Cal Newport. And maybe you've come across this book before, or maybe you've even read this book already, but it is such a good book. And it essentially talks about the importance of deep work. So deep work is essentially where you enter these periods of long, hyper-focused, uninterrupted work on high leverage tasks, as opposed to what he calls shallow work, which is where you're kind of checking your emails, you're getting distracted by your phone, and you're not actually getting anything done. I'm not going to go into much detail in this video about deep work because I want to make an entire video on deep work specifically and on this book. But yeah, I would definitely recommend reading this book if you haven't already. Okay, so I want to make it very clear that if you commit to both cutting out all distractions and also committing to deep focused work, even for a period of 6 months, I can promise you that you will not recognize yourself by the end of it. And that's actually it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. And if you do want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.